All right. So when we look good, we're framed up, right? Well, wait, where's Lindsay? Okay, can we make sure, like, can you stay at this camera and make sure it's okay? All right, Evan. So, to start things off, let's just talk a little bit about where you grew up, things like that, first of all. Tell me a little bit about where you're from, what are some hobbies that you did when you were in high school, things like that, and then how you chose USC. That's a lot.
So I grew up in Michigan. I've lived there all my life until now. So during high school, I was on the robotics team. I did a lot of programming. So that was essentially what made me go into computer science. I came to USC because I like the weather and they offer some very good scholarships. It was actually cheaper to come here than my first choice in Michigan. So most of what I did during high school, based on like hobbies and the clubs I was in, it was all programming based. Like as on the programming team, I was the like lead programmer for the robotics team.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what your town was like that you came from.
It's not like a huge town, but we have the second like biggest school district in Michigan, right next to us. So that's I think that's why my parents had chosen that area to live. Our town itself, not a ton of people my age, so that's probably why I was more reclused, learned more about computers, stuff like that.
Cool. So, any siblings?
Yeah, I have two older brothers, so that also got me a bit into computers because, of course, growing up around then, they had a computer, we played video games.
Huh. So, and they know about your microchip?
Yeah, they don't know very much about it. I haven't been home at all yet.
Yeah.
I'm going home soon for Thanksgiving, so that's going to be the first time they'll actually get to see it. My parents got to see it once when they came down to visit, I think it was like a few weeks ago, but it will be the first time my siblings get to see, as well as the rest of my family. It'll be interesting to see how some of the other people in my family react, because I have some uncles and aunts who will probably have some interesting reactions based on their political views. little conspiracy, but...
Yeah, okay, so, and you're a computer science major right now.
Yes.
Tell me about how you got to that. Why did you decide to major in computer science?
Well, I've been programming for a long time. It's kind of hard to think back to when I first started programming, but I've just always had an interest in computers. I actually almost went into pre-med because I've been very interested in neurology as well. But after doing some internships at a physical therapy, what do you call it? A physical therapy place, I decided that computer science was just more interesting to me. And then after working a couple jobs in computer science, it really just solidified that this is what I want to do.
So you implanted a microchip into your hand?
4 of them, yes.
Why did you do that?
I thought it'd be cool, and I was right.
So you think it's lived up to what you wanted to get out of it?
More or less. I mean, for as much as the conversation starter can be, it's definitely a useful one.
Yeah, of course it is. So what are all the things that the microchips do?
So I have 2 in each hand. In my left hand, I have my Carolina card and my contact information. So it can get me into some buildings, and if somebody puts their phone up to my hand, it will add my contact to their phone. I also have an LED in that hand. I also have one in my right hand. And the other chip in my right hand can do cryptography, so I use it for two-factor authentication, which is very useful because while something like normal methods for like a phone call, a text, an email, those are all inherently not secure, because just like someone can get into any account of yours, if they're just emailing you and you have the same password for your email, they can get into that too, and then that two-factor authentication is kind of useless.
Yeah.
But for something that you have to scan, and each scan is different, it's inherently more secure because I'm the only person that can scan it, and you wouldn't think that someone has something like this, so it's not like someone's walking down the street, they see me, they think to try to scan it, and even if they tried, they have to get so close to my hand, it's kind of obvious.
Yeah. So where did you first get this idea, and like what brought you to this point?
So I was online and I saw a post of somebody who had done the same thing, and they were talking about some of the things they used it for. They used a lock, their front door lock. They had hooked it up to work with it. Unfortunately, I can't do anything like that because, of course, I live on campus. They also used it to get into their computer. Instead of having a normal password, they used that. By scanning it, it would log them in. Phones also used to allow you to do that, but for some reason Android has moved away from that. It's a little unfortunate, but seeing all those uses, I thought that would be a very interesting thing to do, so I did some research into it, saw that they weren't very expensive, so I thought I'd give it a try.
Yeah. So there are obviously some people out there that have heard about this. Well, let me rephrase that. So there are obviously people out there that think this is weird, and they think, oh my gosh, this is freaky. Why did he do this? What do you have to say to those people?
Well, there's not that much that can be said right now, just because it's such a niche technology still. A lot of the things I hear about detractors from it, they hear, oh, you're putting technology in your body, it's going to control your mind, people are going to track you, things like that, which are always very interesting because, for one, the chips are passively powered, so they can't be on unless it's getting power from a scanner. There's no batteries or anything, so even if it had GPS in it, it literally could not track you. It also doesn't have GPS, so it can't track you in any way regardless. What's also interesting is I can change the values on them whenever I want, so it's not like someone could just follow around where I'm scanning it to find out where I'm going, essentially. So there's no real way to be tracked with them. And of course, they can't control your mind. That's not a thing that exists until Tesla comes out with that Neuralink. But yeah, that's the usual argument from detractors, and usually they're pretty unfounded. But until these become more mainstream, it's kind of hard to convince people of the use of them because there's still a pretty small use case. I think once they become EMV certified, which is the technology that credit cards use, I think that's going to be something that pushes it over into more mainstream use, just because they have all the technology that would need to exist for them to be used for contactless payment. But because they aren't partnered with any banks or credit card companies, they can't be used for that yet. So once they partner with a company like that who is interested enough in the technology to put some effort into developing a partnership with them, I think that's going to push the technology forward into mainstream.
So was there ever any pain involved when you were injecting them into yourself?
Yeah, of course it is a needle, so it's going to hurt, but it hurts no more than something like giving blood would.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about the process of actually getting them into your hand.
So I was really careful with keeping everything clean, of course, because you would never want to be infected. So I bought some isopropyl alcohol, used that for some preliminary disinfecting of like where I was doing it, which was the desk in my dorm. I cleaned off my hands with it and, of course, washed everything thoroughly. I put down the sterile draping that they sent over my desk, and I had used the chlorohexane wipes that they sent, which is a very powerful sterilization wipe. After that, it's really just using the sterilized syringe and getting it in there.
Were you scared at any point during the process?
The first time I was a little worried because I didn't know how much it would hurt. I didn't know if I was going to do it too deep, not deep enough, because of course it's first time. But it actually went surprisingly well. The first one was probably the easiest of them because it was the smallest chip. I didn't even know it would be the smallest. It was just a 50-50. So yeah, after that, I was pretty confident in how to go about it. The first time I did it, I had two different chips because it was a bundle, so I did one in each hand. It was a bit harder to do the second one because, of course, there was now a hole in the first hand, but it wasn't bad.
Were you afraid that maybe there was going to be some kind of infection or something afterwards?
Not really, because I was very cautious. Even after doing it, I kept everything very sterile, used a lot of bandages, everything like that. just to be safe until it scabbed over, the skin healed. And once everything was fully healed up, I felt pretty relaxed about it just because there were no signs of infection and there have yet to be any. So,
well, that's really cool. That's really interesting. You did it through a third-party website. So basically, you ordered the materials off of the website and all of it came in. Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so they're a company that specializes in this. They've been making implantable technology for 14 years. The CEO of the company has 16 implants, if I recall. Wow. Yeah, like he has one of everything he's made, of course. He also has a credit card chip in it. So they've been doing it for a long time, so they know what they're doing. They send everything very sterilized and ready to be used, essentially. They recommend you go to a piercing shop to have it done because that's their profession, but there aren't really many around here that are willing to do something like that. So I decided just to do it on my own because many people have done that for these types of implants.
Wow. That is really interesting. I just learned something new every single time. Yeah. But I'm trying to think where we could go from here. Any other questions? Oh, your roommates. What do they think about you putting microchips into your hand? Are they cool with it? Are they scared?
They haven't really seemed concerned much. They noticed that I had them. I hadn't told them anything. They just saw that there was a Band-Aid on each hand, and they're like, "Hey, what happened?" And I'm like, "Hey, let me show you this." So I showed them me using them. They thought it was really cool. So really, they haven't had any negative reactions about it, but I haven't really talked to them too thoroughly about it.
What do your close friends think?
Most of my friends think it's pretty cool, mostly because most of my friends, of course, are very techy. They're computer science, computer engineering. So this is stuff that interests them. I have had some people who aren't so techy, and they are kind of weirded out about it. My parents, like a few of my friends. But mostly the reception has been pretty positive.
So your parents, are they totally cool with it? How did they find out about it?
So I didn't tell them before I did it or when I did it. I actually told them after I had been approached by the Carolina newspaper, the Daily Gamecock. I told them that I was going to be interviewed. At first, they were pretty concerned about it. My mom she's not very tech savvy, so she didn't really understand what it was. So she was kind of like, "Oh, what if you get infected? Oh, why would you do this?" But after I had explained it to my dad, who's much more tech savvy, and he had explained it more to her, she was less angry and she was more just like concerned. But after they came down, saw that I was all healed, saw me show them what I could do with it, they were more relaxed about it. They would never like do it themselves or anything. Like they aren't interested in it, but they weren't really surprised that I would do something like this.
Really? Do you think that's the general consensus of people that know you?
Yeah, probably. A lot of my friends from back in Michigan, I actually hadn't told them either. I was going to show them after I got back, but someone had posted a link to one of the articles. I'm not sure how they found it, but they were all like, "This is exactly what he would do." I do have one teacher back in Michigan who I'm really looking forward to seeing next time, because like I would talk to him every day. This is like, we always talk about like really in-depth computer science stuff, and I think this is something that'd be really interesting to him.
That's cool. Do you ever do anything else like this with computer science?
I do work on a lot of personal projects, but nothing implanted yet that was made by me. Probably never going to, because I don't trust my own ability to sterilize things. But yeah, I've worked on a lot of personal projects. I've built servers before, things like that.
Do you see yourself putting more microchips into your body in the future?
I could definitely see myself doing it in the future if any are developed that have something that I would want. If they have ones that allow for contactless payment, for example, I could definitely see myself getting one of those. I don't really need any more of the ones that I have, just because I have most of the uses that I need already. They do sell other ones like implantable magnets, which are really cool, but I don't personally have much of a use for them, so I haven't invested in one of those yet. but they definitely do have some very interesting, different implantable technologies.
Yeah. So tell me about what this thing is made out of and what keeps your hand from setting off the metal detector when you're going through the airport.
Yeah, so all the implants are encased in something called bioglass. It's specifically designed not to interact with the immune system, so your body doesn't eject it or anything. Inside is a copper coil, which acts as the antenna. That's what powers the chips when you put it up to a scanner. In two of the chips, they have actual technology in it that do the actual, they send my contact to the phone, things like that. The other ones have LEDs in them. But they actually, because they're under the skin in a layer of glass, they don't set off metal detectors. They don't set off the millimeter scanners that the airports use. And they are MRI safe as well because they're not magnetic.
So this thing is completely safe, no harm done so far.
I have not had any problems with them. If you do it and don't take the proper measures to keep everything sterile, they can get infected, as could anything that is a wound. They are generally safe so long as you follow the procedure, but of course, with anything, something could go wrong. You could get infected. You could accidentally nick a vein. Of course, that wouldn't be deadly or anything. It would just be messy.
So you did this yourself?
Yes.
And how did you learn how to do the procedure?
So before being in computer science, I was planning to go into pre-med, so I've had experience with some medical equipment, with sterilization, things like that. So I had enough faith into myself to give it a try. I mean, the area where I implanted them, which is the normal place that most people do, it's between the index finger and thumb. There's no major blood vessels there. It's all fatty and cushioned. So it's a very safe place to do something like this, as opposed to if you were to do it somewhere like the wrist or somewhere where it has a potential to be messier, or you might accidentally hit a tendon or a vein or something. It could definitely be a much more delicate procedure that I wouldn't be comfortable doing, but because of the area it's done, it's a generally safe procedure.
So do you think that human implants, human microchips are the future of technology?
I don't know if I would say that they as a whole would be the future. I think it is a area of technology that definitely has a lot to offer, in the same way that wearable technology will never replace a computer. Implantable technology will probably never replace computers or anything like that, but they definitely have a lot of potential.
That is really interesting. And do you think that you might consider yourself a pioneer in this type of technology?
In all honesty, I feel like I'm pretty late on the early adapter, just because there are thousands of people who have already done this. There are countries like Germany and Sweden who already have much more integrated programs like this, where they are partnered with banks and you can use them for payment. America is actually pretty late on the bandwagon for implantable technology, but I definitely believe I am a early adapter of it. I definitely wouldn't see myself as a pioneer because I really just bought a product online.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you think the United States, just as a country, is just behind in this technology?
I think there's definitely things that, I don't know if I'd say the United States is behind. I think it's more of, we just need to get more people interested, so the credit card companies, so banks, can see that there is potential for a reason that they would want to partner with a company like this. Until something like that happens, it's going to be hard to get them interested in the potential risk of investing in something like this. But if we can get enough support behind it, implantable payment technology could be very upcoming.
Do you have any idea of how many people in the U.S. might have already done something like this?
I believe it is in the thousands. I don't have an exact number, but the number is growing every day.
Yeah. So you told me that before you did this, you were basically a ghost. on the internet. You don't like putting your info out there. How are you reacting to this new publicity?
It is a little uncomfortable, I suppose. If you were to like look up my name before, you would have no real results because I don't really have any social media, anything like that. So it is a little uncomfortable that someone could now look up my name or even just the college I go to and implantable, because there are people who, even though they don't know my name or anything about me other than they know that I go to this college and they know that I have implants, they can now find my name and everything like that. It isn't something that I would have wanted to happen, but, you know.
Yeah. Are you worried?
I wouldn't say that I'm worried. It's not like there's anything wrong with having some amount of publicity. It's not like there's anyone who would want to look me up maliciously, but you know, just going from a state where there wasn't really anything out there about me to now you can look up my name and have all these articles pop up, it's a bit of a transition.
How do you feel that this has become your, identifying factor?
I mean, realistically, it's more of a conversation starter for people I'm meeting. I don't think too many people who like are my friends really care about it that much. Like, it's fun to show off once or twice to them, but I mean, other than that, it's really just a part of me, I guess. It's no different than, hey, this person has a cell phone. It's just a technology that I own. It just happens to be under my skin.
Yeah, so how do you feel about showing us the LED light up? Could you do
Yeah.
it in here, like right now?
Yeah,
Maybe
so
be able to get it on the camera.
let me take this out so it's brighter. Which camera should
You can just like put it up, and
If we put it up here, you can see in this hand, this one's.
do you see it? You might have to just put it, like, show it to me in the, just show it to me like you would normally show it to me.
All right.
You see? That is very interesting.
And then,
So it just lights up. What causes this reaction?
so what is in every phone that can read these is a copper coil that can send out radio waves. And there is another copper coil in all of my implants. And what happens when the transmitter, which is sending radio waves, comes close to a receiver, which also exists in your Carolina card, it actually powers the receiver. So it's able to basically send power over radio to this chip inside of me. It's easy to show off with an LED, but the same thing is happening every time you
Yeah.
scan your Carolina card.
So, yeah, cool. Do you want to try to, like, focus this camera on his hand? I mean, we're pretty much done with the interview portion. Do you want
I'm not going to be able to reframe it, how it's framed exactly.
any other questions we want to ask
I don't think so.
that we're thinking of?
It's been 25 minutes. I think you got it.
I think we're good. So yeah, try to zoom in.